Welcome to Threads of Truth, the podcast where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation. Today, we travel to a Brazilian hillside where two men were found dead wearing lead-eye masks, carrying cryptic instructions, and chasing luminous beings. What really happened in the lead mask case? Imagine for a moment, if you will, the scorching Brazilian heat of August 1966. It's clinging to the humid air of Morro do Vintém, this relatively isolated, quite overgrown hill in Niterói. That's a city sitting right across Guanabara Bay from the iconic skyline of Rio de Janeiro.
Right across the bay.
And it's here, amidst all this dense foliage, that a young boy, just flying a kite, stumbled upon a scene so profoundly bizarre, so utterly out of place. It would defy logic and, well, haunt investigators for decades.
Decades, yeah.
Two men dressed in formal suits discovered side by side, and their faces are obscured by these strange custom-made lead masks.
Right, the lead masks, the central image.
Exactly. And there were no signs of struggle, no obvious injuries to indicate, a violent encounter, no blood, no overt foul play. Yet the scene itself was anything but peaceful.
No, not at all.
Beside them, there's this cryptic note. It reads more like, an instruction manual for some otherworldly encounter than maybe a suicide note, or just a simple clue to a mundane crime. It truly defies easy explanation, doesn't it, right at first glance?
It really does. It sets the stage immediately for something deeply unusual.
So as we start this deep dive, we're left with so many central questions. These have haunted investigators, amateur sleuths for, nearly 60 years now. Were these men perhaps scientists, maybe engaged in some clandestine, possibly illicit mission that went, catastrophically wrong?
That's one line of thought, yeah.
Or were they instead cultists, drawn into some esoteric ritual that just spiraled tragically out of control?
A very plausible angle, given some of the details.
Or were they victims of something truly unknown?
Sure.
Perhaps an experience so profound, so otherworldly, that it pushes the very boundaries of our current understanding.
And that's where things get really speculative, but you can't ignore it with this case.
Our mission today is to sift through the known facts, navigate this labyrinthine web of internet theories that have built up around the case, and place it all within the crucial cultural context of the time.
Which is essential. Absolutely.
We aim to extract the most important insights and, attempt to shed some much-needed light on one of Brazil's most perplexing and enduring cold cases. It's a deep dive into an enigma wrapped in lead, paper, and the unsettling silence of a forgotten hillside. Okay, let's begin our journey back, August 20, 1966. The story, or maybe the puzzle, really begins with that discovery on Morro do Vintém, the hill overlooking Niterói. It was the details of the initial scene itself that immediately stamped this case as profoundly different.
What's truly striking, I think, is how the sheer strangeness of the discovery immediately dictated the tone for the entire investigation and really for the public's enduring fascination ever since. Unlike many cases that sort of slowly unravel their secrets, the lead mask mystery just declared its peculiarity right from the very first moment authorities arrived. It wasn't just two bodies. It was a carefully composed tableau of the unexplained.
A tableau, that's a good word for it.
Yeah, the very first details they encountered at the scene were so out of the ordinary that they immediately signaled something unique, something that just wouldn't conform to typical criminal patterns,
Right.
And this immediate sense of the bizarre, it's permeated every theory, every discussion about the lead mask case ever since. It really solidified its place as a true legend of the unexplained.
So who were these individuals then? The men at the heart of this surreal scene, who were Manuel and Miguel.
Okay, so they were identified as Manuel Pereira de Cruz, he was 32 years old, and Miguel Jose Viana, who was 34. Both men were electronic technicians by profession.
Electronic technicians, okay.
Yeah, and they hailed from a town called Campos dos Goitacazes, which is roughly maybe 175 miles north of Niterói, so not local to the hill itself. On the surface, there were seemingly ordinary men, both married, had families, established lives, but here's the crucial detail that police investigations later uncovered. It's a piece of information that lays critical groundwork for so many of the theories that would later emerge.
Okay, what was that?
Both men were known to be deeply interested in what was then termed scientific spiritualism.
Scientific spiritualism.
Oh.
What exactly does that entail?
Well, to understand their mindset, It's worth noting that scientific spiritualism in mid-20th century Brazil was this fascinating, sometimes contradictory blend. It mixed esoteric belief with a kind of pseudoscientific approach. It wasn't purely mystical in the traditional sense. There was an experimental, almost an engineering aspect to their spiritual quest. They reportedly experimented with electronic devices.
Hence their profession, maybe.
Exactly. They believed they could use technology to bridge the gap to other dimensions, to contact spirits, or even, perhaps more startlingly, extraterrestrial.
Wow, okay, that definitely adds a layer.
It does. This background suggests a pre-existing belief system and a very particular methodology for exploring the unknown, which makes their final actions, as we'll see, both perplexing and, in a strange way, kind of disturbingly consistent with their stated interests.
Right.
It hints at a very specific, perhaps dangerous pursuit they were involved in.
That immediately shifts our perception of who these men were, doesn't it? So, knowing this now, what did we know about their movements leading up to that grim discovery on Morro de Vintem? Was there any indication of what they were doing or maybe where they thought they were going?
The timeline leading up to August 20th is, maybe surprisingly, quite detailed, given the ultimate mystery surrounding their deaths. It paints a picture of a planned, almost ritualistic progression rather than, say, a spontaneous event.
Ritualistic.
On August 17th, just 3 days before their bodies were found, they left their hometown of Campos. Now, they told their families they were going to São Paulo, a major industrial city. The reason? To buy materials for their electronics work. This was, a seemingly mundane, even logical reason for such a trip. It provided a plausible cover story.
A cover, right?
Yeah, allowing them to embark on what turned out to be this fateful journey. However, instead of going to São Paulo, they arrived in Niterói.
Okay, so not São Paulo.
Not São Paulo. Once they were in Niterói, witnesses placed them making a couple of very specific and, looking back, quite odd purchases. First, they bought a bottle of mineral water from a local bar, specifically Agua Radiolite.
Agua Radiolite.
Yeah. And a receipt for this purchase was later found in Miguel's pocket. It's a small detail, but intriguing, as some have speculated. It implies they intended to return the bottle. Maybe suggesting a short-term plan or perhaps just a habit of being resourceful.
Interesting.
And then, quite oddly, they went to another store and bought identical waterproof raincoats.
Identical raincoats. Now, that's a curiously specific detail. What's the significance of that, do you think? Beyond just, uniformity.
Indeed, it really adds significantly to the calculated nature of their preparations, doesn't it? It suggests uniformity, maybe a planned activity where specific gear was required, or perhaps even a deep sense of shared purpose that extended right down to their very attire.
Yeah, it feels very deliberate.
This wasn't the sort of spontaneous purchase you make on a whim. It speaks of forethought. Witnesses at the bar where they bought the water also reported something else telling. One of the men, likely Miguel, appeared visibly anxious.
Anxious? How so?
He was reportedly checking his watch constantly, as if he was under a strict deadline or maybe awaiting a crucial moment. Their last confirmed sighting was leaving that very bar at approximately 2:30 p.m. Presumably, they were heading directly towards Morro de Vintem then.
Okay.
So this meticulous sequence of events, you've got the false alibi, the very specific and unusual purchases, the apparent anxiety, the precise timing. It contrasts so sharply with the surreal and utterly unexplained nature of their ultimate demise.
It really does.
It feels like pieces of a meticulously planned puzzle, but we're just missing the blueprint, These seemingly innocuous purchases, however, were merely the prelude to a scene that would defy explanation for decades.
But the true horror, and really the beginning of the enigma, lay in what was found on that desolate hillside. Describe the scene on Vintem Hill for us. What did investigators actually find when they finally reached the bodies?
Well, the bodies were initially discovered by a young boy. He was just flying a kite. It's a poignant image, isn't it? The innocence of a child's pastime right up against such a grim discovery.
Yeah, absolutely.
However, because of the difficult, overgrown terrain of Morro de Vintem, it's rocky, a steep incline, dense with tropical vegetation, authorities couldn't even reach the site until the following day, August 21st.
So a day later.
A full day later. And when they finally did get up there, the scene that awaited them was something out of a strange, unsettling film. They found Manuel and Miguel lying side by side, partly obscured by the dense grass and undergrowth of the hillside. Both were dressed formally, in suits, and wearing those newly purchased waterproof coats, which ironically offered very little protection against whatever truly transpired.
Right.
But the most iconic and truly baffling detail was, of course, the lead masks. These weren't just scraps of metal, they were eye masks made of lead, shaped to fit precisely over their eyes and secured with wire.
Shaped to fit, so custom made.
It appears so. They were intentionally fashioned, almost like specialized protective gear, or perhaps ceremonial artifacts, designed maybe to obscure their vision from something specific.
Lead masks over their eyes. That image alone, that specific and unsettling detail, must have immediately signaled to the authorities that this was no ordinary case. Yeah. What must it have been like for them arriving on that scene and seeing that for the first time?
Absolutely. It's the detail that just imprints itself most vividly on your mind when you hear about this case. It's the one that screams unexplained. Nearby, investigators also found an empty plastic water bottle, the Agua Radiolite bottle. 2 wet towels, which suggests perhaps they had cleaned something or themselves.
The towels are interesting.
Yeah, and a small notebook. Crucially, their pockets still contain money and various receipts. This immediately ruled out robbery as a motive, which quickly eliminated one of the most common explanations for such a death.
Okay, so not robbery.
Not robbery. And another peculiar detail that spoke of deliberate action. Their watches had been meticulously removed from their wrists and placed together in a plastic bag.
Their watches, removed and bagged.
Yes. This suggests a careful, deliberate act, either by them or possibly by someone else involved. It speaks against a frantic struggle, you know?
Right.
The whole scene just spoke of intention and planning, but whose intention and for what purpose? Well, that remains the profound, haunting question.
And what about that small notebook you mentioned? This feels like it should be the key to everything, right? Providing the answers we need. What does it say?
Well, you'd think so. It was found tucked into Manuel's pocket. This small notebook contained a single handwritten message written in Portuguese.
Okay.
It read, 16.30 SAR no local determinado, 18.30 injurir capsulas, após efeito prodiger metais a guardar sinal máscara.
Okay, can you translate that for us?
Sure. When translated, this reads, 16.30 be at the agreed place, 18.30 ingest capsules, after effect protect metals await signal mask.
Wow. Okay, so times, capsules, protect metals, await signal, mask.
Exactly. This note is, without a doubt, the central piece of written evidence. It's a set of instructions or maybe a pre-planned schedule. But its ambiguity is just maddening. It raises far more questions than it answers.
Definitely.
And what's particularly significant, a detail that really cannot be overstated, is that the handwriting on the note was later determined not to be theirs. Not Manuel's, not Miguel's.
Wait, not their handwriting?
No. This strongly suggests it was either written by a third party, maybe a leader instructing them, perhaps the leader of this scientific spiritualist group, or an accomplice. It further deepens the layers of complexity and suspicion surrounding the case.
So someone else wrote the instructions they were following.
That's what it points to. It suggests external influence rather than a self-contained plan. It implies a level of orchestration beyond just the 2 victims.
So we have this incredibly strange scene. A cryptic note, clearly meant for them but not written by them, and 2 victims with no obvious cause of death. What about the official investigation into their deaths? What did the autopsies reveal? Surely that would give us some definitive answers.
This raises an important question, and it's precisely where the investigation truly hit a catastrophic, almost insurmountable wall. The police, understandably, initially treated the case with extreme caution due to its utterly bizarre nature. They recognized it wasn't a typical crime and required careful handling. However, a monumental and crucial setback occurred almost immediately. The coroner's office in Rio was reportedly overwhelmed or critically busy at the time.
Oh, no.
Yeah, leading to a devastatingly significant delay in conducting the autopsies. The bodies, remember, discovered on August 20th, had been exposed to the elements on that hill for 3 full days.
3 days in the Brazilian heat.
Exactly. 3 days of tropical sun, humidity, and the natural processes of decomposition before they could be properly examined. As a direct and tragic consequence, by the time the autopsies were finally performed, their internal organs were far too decomposed for any reliable toxicology testing.
No toxicology. Seriously.
None that was reliable. This is the single biggest forensic failure in the entire case. It means that the definitive cause of death was officially inconclusive. It's often vaguely cited as cardiac arrest on their death certificate.
That's just a guess, basically.
It's pure speculation without any definitive toxicological support to identify substances in their system. It's essentially a placeholder for the unknown. The profound lack of this crucial data point is precisely why this case continues to baffle us and why it remains unsolved after nearly 6 decades.
Wow.
Without knowing what, if anything, they ingested those capsules from the note, almost all theories remain unprovable. They're stuck firmly in the realm of conjecture. It's the architect of this enduring mystery, really. It allows every theory, no matter how wild, to retain a sliver of plausibility.
Given their known interest, then, in scientific spiritualism and maybe extraterrestrial contact, did police find anything else among their belongings? Anything that might shed further light on their intentions or activities leading up to this point?
Yes, they did. Outside of the immediate crime scene, when investigators examined their personal effects back in their homes in Campos dos Goitacazes, they found a collection of books on spiritualism, parapsychology, and extraterrestrial contact.
Okay, so confirming their interests.
Exactly. This discovery further reinforced their known interests in these esoteric areas, providing a broader context for the strange events on the Hill. It suggests this wasn't just an isolated, out-of-character incident, but potentially the culmination of their spiritual or, scientific pursuits.
What?
One report even mentioned that Manuel had earlier made a rudimentary radio receiver, supposedly for spirit communication, which just underlines their active experimental approach to these beliefs.
A radio receiver for spirits.
Okay.
And I hear there might have been a remarkably similar, almost identical incident that predates this one. That would certainly add another chilling and deeply unsettling layer to the mystery.
This adds a profound layer of intrigue, yeah. And it certainly fuels the cult or maybe serial ritual theories surrounding the lead mask case. There were these obscure, though not widely publicized at the time, reports of a remarkably similar death 4 years prior, back in 1962.
4 years earlier.
Yes. A man named James Luis Tosa was found dead with a lead mask on a different hill in an entirely different part of Brazil.
With a lead mask. Wow.
And he, too, was reportedly interested in psychic abilities and spiritual exploration. The details, while maybe not perfectly identical, are eerily resonant. You've got the lead mask, the remote hilltop location, the spiritual interests.
That's incredible.
While the connection isn't definitively proven in official records, the parallel is undeniably eerie. It suggests a potential pattern or perhaps even a specific clandestine group involved in such rituals.
Right.
If true, it means Manuel and Miguel's deaths might not have been isolated, but part of a larger, unexplained, and deeply concerning series of events.
And what about reports of strange lights or other unusual phenomena in the Niterói area around that time? Does the environment itself contribute to the mystery?
Yes, adding to the already enigmatic atmosphere, there were local reports of strange lights or a UFO sighting in the Niterói area around the time of their deaths, specifically on the night of August 17th, the day they arrived. These reports, though anecdotal, certainly fed into the more speculative theories about extraterrestrial contact. The idea that these men were awaiting a signal from, quote, luminous beings became instantly intertwined with these public sightings.
Naturally.
However, it's also worth noting that some more grounded observers attributed these sightings to natural phenomena. They suggested there was a significant storm around that time, which could potentially account for unusual atmospheric lights or maybe even ball lightning.
Right. A storm could explain weird lights.
It's hard to definitively connect the two, the lights and the deaths, but the public, quite naturally, certainly did. The case just became this crucible where scientific uncertainty, spiritual beliefs, and nascent ufology all converged.
Okay, so let's move into the theories then. Because that lack of evidence, the sheer strangeness, it must have fueled endless speculation, especially online.
Oh, absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the sheer lack of conclusive forensic evidence, especially the missing toxicology, combined with the inherently strange and symbolic nature of the crime scene, It has made this case a veritable playground for internet sleuths and theorists.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Across platforms like Reddit, YouTube, various online forums, people have dedicated countless hours to dissecting every detail, trying to piece together a coherent narrative from, fragments of information and a healthy dose of speculation.
Mhm.
The lead mask case is truly a prime example of a cold case resurrected and re-examined by the digital age. It's gained a whole new global audience.
And what are some of the most compelling or perhaps wildest theories out there that attempt to explain what happened on Morro do Vintém? Let's dive into the speculation.
That's probably the most prominent online theory, and perhaps the most widely accepted given the victims' backgrounds, is the scientific spiritualism or occult ritual theory.
Right, the one that fits their known interests.
Exactly. This posits that Manuel and Miguel were part of a scientific spiritualist group or cult, deeply engaged in experimental attempts to contact other realms or beings. The lead masks, in this context, weren't just random objects, they were for protection.
Protection from what, though?
Protection against a perceived blinding light, perhaps? Or some form of intense spiritual or even electromagnetic radiation that they anticipated from a successful contact with spirits or extraterrestrials. It aligns perfectly with their known interests and documented pursuits.
Okay.
So the core insight here is maybe that the lead mask case exemplifies how profound forensic failures can create these perfect vacuums for rampant speculation. It makes definitive answers impossible and allows theories like this one to flourish.
So the capsules in the note would be an integral part of this spiritual or contact ritual. What might they have been?
Precisely. The capsules are widely thought to be psychedelic drugs. Perhaps something native to Brazil like datura, which is known for its potent, often disorienting hallucinogenic effects.
Yeah, Tura. Okay, that's powerful stuff.
Very. These were intended, presumably, to induce a trance state, a heightened state of consciousness necessary for making contact, or maybe to enhance the perception of other dimensions. The tragic outcome, then, would be an accidental overdose from these powerful substances.
Or maybe they were just poisonous.
Or perhaps they were unknowingly poisonous, leading directly to their deaths. The instruction "protect metals after effect" could refer to a perceived electromagnetic or spiritual discharge they expected as part of this contact, something they believed might interfere with their electronic devices or even their bodies.
Okay.
And the fact, again, that the note itself was not in their handwriting strongly suggests it was instructions from a guru or leader of this group, providing a blueprint for their ritual. The signal was the anticipated communication, the ultimate goal of their endeavor. And as we discussed, that earlier similar death of Hermes Luis Feitosa, also found with the lead mask, adds significant weight to the idea of a recurring phenomenon, or a specific, perhaps dangerous, spiritual group operating in the shadows. It paints a chilling picture of a calculated, albeit incredibly risky, spiritual experiment.
That's a powerful theory. It ties a lot together. But what about a more nefarious human element? Could this have been a crime driven by something other than spiritual seeking? Could it have been a different kind of ritual entirely?
Absolutely. Some online communities, looking for a more grounded, albeit still sinister, explanation, lean towards a scam or criminal conspiracy theory.
A scam? How would that work?
This theory suggests the men were lured to the hill by a con artist, someone who promised to sell them something valuable, perhaps radioactive material specifically for their electronics work, or maybe even for their spiritual endeavors, believing it would enhance their abilities to make contact.
Radioactive material.
Brazil in the 60s, like many developing nations, saw its share of illicit trade and, frankly, charlatans. In this dark scenario, the capsules weren't spiritual aids at all, but poison, cleverly administered by the con artist.
Poison disguised as something else.
Exactly. They might have been told these capsules were anti-radiation medicine, or simply part of the deal to prepare them for handling the material. The lead masks could also have been part of this deception.
How so?
Either for perceived protection from the fake radioactive material, or simply given by the con artist to enhance the illusion and mystique of the transaction, making the scam more believable. This theory explains several key details,
Like what?
like why money was found on them, they brought it for the purchase, and the lack of struggle. They may not have realized they were being poisoned until it was too late to react.
Oh, okay.
The agreed place and a wait signal fit perfectly with a prearranged deceptive meeting. where the con artist would arrive with the supposed material and then make off with their money after they were incapacitated.
That's a chillingly plausible alternative. So no large group, no con artist. A more straightforward explanation might be just a tragic miscalculation without external manipulation.
Indeed. A simpler theory, often discussed online, suggests they were simply engaged in an accidental drug overdose or experiment, perhaps independent of a larger organized cult.
Just the two of them.
Just the two of them. In this scenario, they were experimenting with powerful hallucinogens for their own spiritual or personal reasons, maybe seeking enlightenment or a breakthrough in their scientific spiritualism studies. They simply miscalculated the dose or had a severe, unexpected adverse reaction to the substances, leading directly to their deaths.
Okay.
In this context, the masks could have been used for sensory deprivation, maybe to enhance the drug experience by blocking out external stimuli and focusing inward, or perhaps for perceived protection from intense light or energies experienced during a powerful trip.
And protect metals.
The instruction "protect metals" might have been a delusional instruction they wrote down during their altered state, maybe a hallucination, or a genuine but misinterpreted effect of the drug on their electronic equipment they might have brought.
Right.
This explanation removes the external, organized element, but still relies heavily on their existing interest in altered states of consciousness for spiritual exploration.
Could it have been self-inflicted, though? Perhaps a shared act born of a common delusion. A suicide pact.
While it's less popular than other theories, the idea of a suicide pact has been proposed. This theory suggests they chose to end their lives together, perhaps driven by a shared delusion or a deeply held belief related to their spiritual pursuits, believing it would lead them to a higher plane or a specific form of contact.
What supports that idea?
Well, the careful arrangement of the bodies and items and the complete lack of struggle at the scene could certainly support the idea of a planned, ritualistic event designed for a specific purpose known only to them.
But the note.
But exactly, it doesn't fully explain the non-handwriting on the note, which points so strongly to an external orchestrator or a previously agreed upon instruction. It presents a paradox, extreme planning by the victims, but seemingly with an external element guiding them.
Okay. Any other exotic theories?
Well, there have also been speculations about environmental or natural causes, though these are generally considered far less likely given the specific context and bizarre details. Some have suggested they might have been struck by lightning.
Lightning. Because of the masks.
Given the metallic nature of the masks and their location on a hill, especially if a storm occurred around that time, as some reports indicated. However, there were no signs of a lightning strike on their bodies or the surrounding area, which usually leaves distinct marks of burning or scorching.
Right. Usually pretty obvious.
Yeah. Exposure or hypothermia have also been floated as possibilities that seem highly unlikely for formally dressed men wearing raincoats in the generally warm Brazilian climate. The conditions don't typically support such an outcome without other contributing factors.
Okay, so probably not natural causes. Which brings us to the really out there theories, doesn't it? The alien connection. This case, with its masks and signals, seems tailor-made for that kind of speculation.
This is a theory that truly captivated the imagination of older UFO circles globally and, honestly, continues to circulate with fervent belief in some corners of the internet. It posits a direct UFO or extraterrestrial contact scenario.
So they were really waiting for a spaceship.
Proponents suggest that the men were actively attempting to contact extraterrestrials, and the signal they awaited was indeed from them. The masks and capsules in this framework were part of a precise, perhaps even alien-given preparation for this contact.
Preparation for what?
Designed maybe to protect them or prepare their bodies for an interaction with beings from another world. Some of the more fringe proponents even suggest direct alien involvement in their deaths. Or perhaps that they were temporarily taken, experienced contact, and then returned, only to succumb to the effects of the encounter later.
Wow. That's quite a leap.
It is. And Jacques Vallée, who is a prominent ufologist and computer scientist, famously visited the site in 1968. He claimed to find traces of residual radiation at the scene.
Radiation.
Seriously?
That was his claim.
Now, it's never been definitively proven or corroborated by official sources, but it adds significant fuel to the fire for this particular theory. It connects the strange circumstances directly to the burgeoning UFO phenomenon of the 1960s, making it a cornerstone of some ufological narratives. And it demonstrates how easily extraordinary claims can be built on ambiguous evidence.
So after looking at all these facts, the bizarre details and the swirling theories, what does this all mean for us? When we look at all these facts and theories, what stands out as most important about the lead mask case?
What's fascinating here, I think, is how the profound gaps in the official investigation, particularly those forensic failures, effectively force us into the realm of speculation. It's almost as if the case was designed to remain a mystery, simply because the crucial evidence wasn't preserved or properly obtained right at the outset.
Yeah, that toxicology report is just a black hole.
It is. This profound lack of toxicology isn't merely a missed data point. It fundamentally biases the entire investigative landscape. It shifts the burden of proof onto circumstantial evidence and leaves fertile ground for every conceivable narrative, from the logical to the truly conspiratorial.
And the note, it's so central to the case, yet it's so incredibly vague and just raises more questions than it answers. What's its enduring significance?
Exactly. The note itself, 16.30 be at the agreed place, 18.3 ASC preserves, after effect protect metals, await signal mask. It's a puzzle unto itself. Its ambiguity is maddening, isn't it?
Completely.
Is it a set of instructions for a ritual meticulously followed? Was it a warning from someone else describing events they should prepare for? Or was it a description of their own pre-planned actions, like a mental checklist?
And yeah, right.
And the fact that the handwriting was definitively determined not to be theirs is such a key detail, one that shifts suspicion away from them acting entirely alone and towards an external instructor, an accomplice, or even a victimizer. It adds layers of complexity and makes the conspiracy or cult leader theories seem much stronger. It's a message that simultaneously reveals and conceals.
Those lead masks are just haunting. They're such an iconic image for this case. Practically, its defining visual. What do you make of them, and why do you think they were there?
The lead masks are undoubtedly the most iconic and baffling element of the entire case. They are the visual anchor of the mystery. Why lead specifically?
Right, why lead?
Lead is known for its properties of shielding against radiation, which immediately brings up the UFO and radiation protection theories. But why masks and why only over the eyes?
Yeah, just the eyes seem specific.
Were they intended for protection against a blinding light, whether physical, spiritual, or even perceived during a hallucinogenic state? Or were they entirely symbolic? Part of an esoteric ritual, perhaps for spiritual protection, a blindfold for a specific purpose, or even a symbol of initiation or transformation. Their specific design, shaped to fit precisely over the eyes and secured with wire, speaks to intentionality and preparation, not randomness or last-minute improvisation. They suggest a deliberate purpose, even if that purpose remains shrouded in mystery. They are perhaps the most compelling physical manifestation of the unknown in this case.
How does the broader cultural context of the time, Brazil in the 1960s, play into understanding this case and why these particular theories gain traction? It feels like more than just a coincidence.
This raises an important question that is often overlooked, I think. It's absolutely essential to place this case within the cultural context of 1960s Brazil and really the global zeitgeist of the era. The 1960s were a time of burgeoning interest in spiritualism, parapsychology, and UFOs, not just in Brazil, but across the world.
Right, the space race, Cold War anxieties.
Exactly. But Brazil, in particular, has a very strong and deeply ingrained history of syncretic spiritual practices, a blend of indigenous beliefs, African religions like Candomblé, and European Catholicism. This often fosters a more open-minded approach to the unseen and unexplained.
Interesting point.
This cultural backdrop provided fertile ground for why some of the more esoteric theories, particularly those involving scientific spiritualism or direct UFO contact, gained such rapid traction and continue to resonate so strongly with the public even today.
So it tapped into existing beliefs.
It wasn't just an isolated, inexplicable incident. It tapped into a broader societal fascination with the unknown, the mystical, and the potential for communication with other realms. It made the seemingly impossible, culturally, a little more plausible for many. It fed into a collective imagination eager for mystery.
So after all this, after dissecting the facts, the theories, the cultural backdrop, What are the core questions that still hang over this case? What truly remains a mystery after nearly 6 decades?
The fundamental questions remain stubbornly unanswered, don't they? And they are precisely why this case continues to captivate. What exactly were the capsules they were instructed to ingest? Without toxicology, we can only guess at their nature or potency.
Right. Unknown substance.
Who wrote that cryptic note, and for whom was it truly intended, them or someone else entirely? What was the mysterious signal they were awaiting on that desolate hillside? Was it a light, a sound, a feeling, a person, or something else entirely?
So many unknowns.
What exactly was the agreed place beyond just the hill? Was it a specific rock formation, a clearing, maybe a marker we don't know about? And most critically, who, if anyone, were they meeting on that desolate hillside? Was it a guru, a con artist, an accomplice, or perhaps something entirely unearthly?
Yeah. Who else was there, if anyone?
These unanswered questions are precisely why the case continues to resonate and captivate online communities. It blurs the lines between true crime, science fiction, and profound human tragedy. The internet has truly resurrected this case globally, connecting it to modern UFO disclosure discussions and highlighting its unique position at the crossroads of science, belief, and the inexplicable.
It really is a unique intersection.
Ultimately, the lead mask case isn't just a cold case. It's kind of a mirror reflecting our own human need for meaning in the inexplicable, whether we seek it in science, spirituality, or the stars.
The lead mask case is a chilling reminder that sometimes the most baffling mysteries aren't about how someone died, but why they were found in such an utterly inexplicable way. Manuel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel Jose Viana left us with a puzzle made of lead, cryptic words, and a silence that has echoed for nearly 6 decades.
The case forces us to confront the limits of our understanding, doesn't it? Not just of forensic science and criminal investigation, but of human belief and the extraordinary lengths to which individuals will go in pursuit of something they perceive as truth, whether that's spiritual enlightenment or direct extraterrestrial contact. It reminds us that sometimes the most profound answers lie not in what we definitively discover, but in the compelling questions we continue to ask and the enduring human fascination with the unknown.
What do you believe happened on Vinton Hill? Were they victims of a spiritual experiment gone awry, a sinister scam, or something truly beyond our current understanding? Next time on Threads of Truth, we tell the heartbreaking story of Asha Degree, a 9-year-old girl who packed her school bag, left her home during a stormy night, and vanished. What drove her into the darkness, and what's kept her missing for over 2 decades. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the unknown.